Okay, in this tutorial we're going to wrap up our update story page. We saw how we had passed the value from the stories page, the story ID, and then we ran a query when the form was shown to populate the form fields with the information from the table. And now what we're going to do is when we post it, we want to post the information. But before I do that, I need to fix something on the back end. We need to change the query. So we saw here at this point in the line of code, we're waiting for the post story element. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go down and change in the form the page. So that's the form. So right here, instead of the post story, I'm going to change this to update story. And in the name attribute, I'm going to change that to update story. And then I also need to change where the form goes. So instead of posting it to the post page, we need to change this to update story. So now we can scroll back up top, and instead of waiting for post story, we're waiting for update story. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to single line notes mode out this insert because we're going to change that to an update. So now if I come back and refresh the page, oh, I see I need to change that line of code as well. So let's go ahead and just change that to update story. So now when I update the story, it's going to say the story has been added to the database, and it probably hasn't. Let's go ahead and see what that did. No, so it didn't do anything. That's just an error in the code. So let's go ahead and get back to that. Now what I need to do now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this print R. I don't necessarily need to do that, but I'm going to do that for troubleshooting reasons. And I need to add another one of these for it to be story ID. So I'm going to change story ID equals, and you remember we're adding this because the story ID now is being posted because we created that hidden field, that hidden input field that held the story IDs. So we've created that variable now that we can use later. We don't really need to run it through the get magic quotes because it's just a number, so I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go ahead and technically I don't need to add that here either because it's already going to be populated as a hidden field, so I'm going to leave that alone. We've got our connection, and what I need to change now is this is good. This is going to grab the story ID value. It's going to change this section that gets posted into a section ID. And what I need to do is change this copy. The story has been updated in the database and not updated. And what I need to do now is change this query. So I'm going to turn the note back on, and I'm going to edit this query. So what I want to do is I'm going to say update stories, and I'm going to set section ID equal to this section ID variable. So I'm going to do $ section ID. Oops, forgot my period there. And then I'm going to have a comma. The next thing I need to do is story headline. So set section ID. We're going to do story headline equal to single quote. Actually, we're going to do double single period. The variable story headline. Oops, sorry, let me get that over so you can see. Comma, and then we're going to do the same thing. I can now sort of start copying and paste. So this is going to be story teaser. Comma, story text, And the last thing I need to do is do the limiter. So I'm going to get rid of this last comma here that I pasted in. And we're going to say where story ID is equal to story ID. Then I'm going to close the entire string so my error went away. So now let's go ahead and change this. So I'm going to change the headline, man bites dog from kitten. I'm going to change the section to politics. And I'm going to update the story. And I seem to have an error, but you can see it's echoing, or see it's posted the story ID value, the section, story teaser, the text, and then, but I have an error here saying not updated. So I've got an error in my query. So update story, set section ID, this needs to be section ID FK. Oops, I still have a typo. So let me save that, come back. I can just refresh the page. And there it says the story has been updated in the database. If I take a look at my stories now, it says man bites dog. So if I child bites cheetah, I can change that to chicken. Change the section to sports. And push update. Story has been added to the database. I don't really need to show that on the back end, so I'm going to single notes mode out the print R function. Look at my stories. It looks like I'm having a problem with my web connection here at home. Oh, there it went. So a child bites chicken, and we're off to the races. Now I do want to point out, both when you post and you are typing stories, that in the form field, now this is really going to make more sense when we work on the front end, but we need to wrap these things. So each paragraph of text, I'm not going to show you all how to build jQuery that can dynamically populate these form fields. By this point you should understand that markup is being pasted in when you use Blogger or WordPress that adds these elements. But you can also add an ahref around these elements. That concludes this tutorial. So now we're able to post stories on the back end, we're able to delete stories on the back end, we're able to update stories on the back end, and then we're able to show all the stories on the back end. So we've completed all our CRUD functionality for the back end of the website. And all that really leaves on the front end is just select queries, so we can show these stories on the front end in the ways that we need.